This is Filming with Josh, brought to you by Rustic River Media. Welcome to the videographer's home for tips, tricks, and how to make flicks.
Hey guys, I want to showcase a tutorial on how to track property lines on real estate. If you do any type of real estate video, high end, low end, doesn't matter, being able to draw property lines around the property that you're listing can drastically improve the quality of your videos and help separate you from your competition. So what I want to do is show you how to do that using Mocha Tracking in After Effects. And what I have here is a brand new After Effects project. The only thing I have in here is the actual drone shot we're going to use. And I'm going to click on that drone shot and do New Comp from Selection. And if you ever work with Premiere Pro, this is going to be very similar. A new comp is very similar to creating like a new sequence or new timeline in Premiere Pro. So when you hit New Comp, think of it as a sequence or timeline in Premiere. What I have here is a drone shot from a real estate shoot I recently did, which I have at the end of this video. You will see this actually used in a real world project when at the end of this video tutorial. And what this is there are two properties for sale. There is lot 3A, which is a little square right here, and then there's lot 5A, which is a lot that kind of encompasses this area right here. And what I wanted to do when I do my videos for real estate, they usually start off with the real estate agent on camera saying who they are and who they're with, and then they go in and in about 60 seconds they describe, more like 40 or 50 seconds, they describe the property, what it looks like, and then at the end they come on camera and wrap it up and do a call to action. And so during the course of the part where they're actually talking about the property, I like to really think through the shots I'm going to be showcasing, and I typically do one or two shots that show property lines around the property so I can give the viewer an understanding of what it is that is for sale. And so for this shot, I knew I wanted to show both of these lots, lot 3A and lot 5A off. So what I did was I did a drone shot with my Phantom 4 Pro Plus, and this was shot at 30 frames per second in 4K. And what it is it's just a shot going towards the property and panning down at the same time. It's a fairly simple shot, but for whatever reason, After Effects is having a very difficult time tracking this accurately, where I could draw property lines around the property and have them stick. Normally, to track objects or to create property line tracking in After Effects, I would go up to the tracker icon right here under the default tab, and I would do track camera, and it would analyze the background and create a bunch of points on here that we could choose from to track. But unfortunately, a lot of times shots, for some reason, After Effects just doesn't track them accurately, and even if it gives you points, the points might move during the track and the shot just doesn't look good or professional. The other way I track is going to that same tracker tab and using track motion. And track motion, I'll zoom in here, creates a little box for you. And what you do is you take this little point and you would want to put it around a very contrasted edge that's going to be, or contrasted point that's going to be in the video the whole time. And so what I'm going to do here is, if I wanted to track something, I would find a contrast point like this roof. As you can see, the roof has a nice little edge right here, a nice little point, and there's contrast where the roof is dark and the edge of the building is light colored. And I would take this point and I would attach it to the corner of the roof, and I would track it forward by hitting the Analyze Forward option. And it works okay. Sometimes if you're doing like a call out title or something, that's a really good way to do it. But again, on a lot of shots, it just doesn't track very well. The other thing is on a shot where a camera is moving towards something, it's changing it's not just changing what needs to be tracked as far as like direction, but it's changing the size, because as we zoom during this shot, for instance, as I scrub forward, you'll see we're getting closer and closer to the building, so the building's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And as such, if you do a single track point, it doesn't it doesn't accommodate for that change in size. So another way you could do it is by going over and choosing to not just track position, but also rotation and scale. And that gives you 2 track points. And you would line one up on like the edge of the building and one up, let's say on the corner of this ATM right here, right? Let's say right there. Actually, I think this one is a better edge. And you would try to track both of these points. And hopefully by doing that, they can determine scale, rotation, and position. But again, After Effects just a lot of times does not do a good time tracking. So what I like to do instead, we'll take those track points off, is use Mocha. Mocha is a built-in plugin for After Effects that is designed to track shots, and it tracks much more accurately than After Effects does. And if you own After Effects or have Creative Cloud, you have Mocha. So to apply Mocha, what you want to do is click on the shot you want to track. In my case, this is the Lot 3A drone shot. Go up to Animation and go down to Track Boris FX Mocha. And what this does is it applies the Mocha effect to your clip. And then from there, you click on Mocha and it launches the Mocha program. And everything we do in Mocha, when we save it in Mocha, it will automatically apply to After Effects. So when you get to Mocha, what we want to do is, I like to start with the first frame. As you can see right down here, this is your playhead. And I like to make sure my playhead is on the first frame. And what I do is I go up here to where it says Create X-Spline Layer Tool, and I'll click on it. And now I'm just going to draw what I want to track. So let's say we want to track Lot 3A first. I just click there, click down here, click over here, and click over there. And then I'm going to right click to let go of the X-Spline tool. And now what I can do is I have it roughly centered or drawn around my property edge. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to zoom in and see how these points are rounded. That's great if you're wanting to go around a surface like this drive right here. But for this, I want it to be pointed edges. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and I'm going to grab this little blue box and I'll pull it tight. And as you can see, that's going to create a nice strong corner. I'm going to go up here, I'm going to do the same thing, pull it tight, nice strong corner. And then we're going to move on up here, do the same thing, nice strong corner. I'm going to actually move the point a little bit to make sure it's right on the edge of the sidewalk so it looks nice and professional. And I'm going to come down here and do the same thing, make sure it's on the very edge of the sidewalk. And now, as you can see, we have our property line drawn. Now, this is not an actual physical line, this is just the tracking, but what we're going to do is we're going to create tracking data for this line. But before we do that, I want to go ahead and go back to the X-Spline tool, and we're going to create another layer by just simply drawing another line. And what I want to do is draw the second property. So to do that, I'm going to add a point roughly right here, add another one here, go down to here, over to here, back down to there. We'll jump across over here, go right there, and go right there. And then we're going to right click. Whoa, I did not right click. Right click, and now we have our second property line drawn. And again, we're going to zoom in on the shot, and we're going to pull our corners nice and tight. And I want to make sure that because I'm tracking 2 different properties, whoop, I need to go back to the front frame here. Let me go back. I want to make sure that I am nice and tight on my property lines because I'm tracking 2 different properties that butt right up next to each other. So just to make sure my shot's nice and professional, I'm going to zoom in and make sure that it's nice and layered. As you can see right here, it's off a little bit. And again, you might not have to do this if you're only tracking one piece of property, but I have 2 lots for sale here during this real estate video, and I want to make sure that I draw lines around both. So I'm going to go down here, pull this line nice and tight, make sure that it's right around where it needs to be. Come back here, do the same thing, pull this line tight, make sure it's nice and centered on the road. This is about roughly where the real estate agent had his lines on his ad. So I know that if I draw my lines like his, then I'm going to be doing a good job. And this one goes right about there. And I'll make sure that's on the edge. I like for my stuff to be real detailed, make sure my stuff is real nice and accurate so that it looks super professional to my client. Now that that's done, I'm going to drag this one, make sure it's running against that fence. Now look at that. We have two property lines nice and tightly pulled together, drawn perfectly. And we're on the first frame. Again, that's real important. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off layer 2 and click on layer 1. And now we're going to track it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down here and make sure that transform, scale, rotate, skew, and perspective are all turned on. You need all of these to be turned on so that it can accommodate for the change in scale and perspective and rotation and things like that. So now that all of those are checked, we're clicked on the layer we want to track, and we are on the first frame. I'm going to hit track forward, and as you can see, it's going to track the property line for us that we draw. And look how it's sticking like glue. It's not moving. It's like you literally stuck glue on these lines and glued it to the drone shot. And this is something that After Effects just has a really hard time doing on its own. But if you launch Mocha and you do this through Mocha, you'll find that creating tracking data is really simple and it's way more accurate most of the time. Sometimes you don't have to launch Mocha, but I find that Mocha is really easy to work with and it tracks very accurately. So let's speed through this so you don't have to sit through the whole thing. All right, as you can see, it tracked really well. And what I can do now is I will just scrub through this whole thing and you can see that it tracked super well and looks really good and stuck to it just like glue. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to go up here and I'm going to turn off layer 1 and turn on layer 2, and now we have our second layer, and click on it. And now that it's clicked on, I'm going to make sure all 5 of these boxes are checked, and I'm going to track forward on layer 2. And as you can see, it is already tracking like glue, just like layer 1 did. So let's speed through this. All right, as you can see, it tracked this again really well, and I will scrub through this for you and you will see that it once again just stuck to our shot. It looks really good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn layer 1 back on and we'll scrub through it together, and as you'll see, layer 1 and layer 2 has tracked really well. So with that done, all you have to do in Mocha is go to File, Save Project, and then X out of it. Now it's important to note that when you do that, it's not actually saving anything, it's just saving it to the effect. So if you actually want to save your data, you actually need to go to After Effects and save it there, because if you don't, the tracking data is only temporarily saved on the effect. So just keep that in mind. It's only saving it to the effect, it's not physically saving it on your computer. Now that that's done, there are a couple things we can do with this. First is, let's say you wanted to add like a call out title. To do that, all you would do is go to Create Track Data, pick the layer that you want to do it for. So let's say we wanted to do a call out title over layer 1, which is this property. We could check layer 1 with a cog, hit OK, and what it's going to do is pop up with all of our tracking data. And then from there, you could, where it says layer export to, you could click here and click the layer down here that you wanted to apply the data to. So if I had a call out title down here, I would just click the name of the call out title and then hit apply export. And what it's going to do is it's going to take all this corner pin data right here and apply it to that call out title for you, or that layer for you, so that if you had a call out title here, it would track it. But what I'm wanting to do right now is I'm wanting to show you guys how you would utilize this in a situation where you wanted to draw a property line. So in order to do that, what we're actually going to do is we're going to create an After Effects mask. And what that's going to do here is it's going to create a mask around our different property lines. And in order to show that off, and let me go back to the composition here. In order to show that off, I'll pan forward or scrub forward, and you'll see how this layer, this mask, is tracking this exactly as we need it to be. And that is exactly what we drew our lines around in Mocha. So now that we have that mask drawn, now we need to draw our line. And so what you're going to do is you're going to go to Effect, and you're going to go down to Generate, and you're going to go down to where it says Stroke. And when you do that, it's going to create a stroke or a line around these different layers for you. And as you can see, we have layer 1 checked. So if I increase the brush size, you'll see that that is our line that's being drawn on layer 1. If we switch to layer 2, it would apply it to layer 2. So let's go back to layer 1, and let's make our brush size about 8. Might be a little big, so let's make it around 7. And let's change our color to, I don't know, let's go with like a blue color. Boom. And now what we have is we have a blue line drawn around layer 1. Now what we can do is we can go to Stroke, or go back into this window, go to Effect, Generate, and create a new stroke. And let's create this stroke and put it on layer 2. And let's keep the brush size the same at 7 so that it matches our other layer. And then let's change it to a reddish color so it complements the blue very, very well. Boom. We now have property lines drawn over our property. Pretty slick, right? Now from here, you can actually have these lines draw themselves. And the way you can do that is you can drop down this little menu, go down to Effects, and we'll pull down Stroke 1 and Stroke 2 here. And let's go to where it says Start and make sure we're at the beginning frame. And we will drop keyframes for the starting point. And then let's say we want it to end at 4 seconds. So we can go down here and drop another keyframe on both of our strokes. And then from there, we can go back to the beginning frame. And let's say we want our start, we'll move our start up to 100, go down to start here, move it to 100, and then watch. Look at that. Our property line is drawing itself. It looks really, really good. And as you can see, since I'm layering these two together, the blue kind of disappears, but you could change the timing. You could even change the direction you want if you wanted to by using end as your points instead of start. So you could change the direction the line draws, you could change the size and the color of the lines, you could change how fast they draw. But for this purpose, I'll just show you that this is a 4-second line draw, and it looks really good, and it's tracking with the property the entire time. This is a really great way to show off the property. Another thing you could do, if you didn't want to do lines, you could turn the strokes off, and instead of doing strokes, we could go up to Effect. Well, let's click on our drone shot. Go up to Effect, Generate, and you could do a fill. And what the fill will do is give you a nice fill in there, and then what you could do is maybe change the opacity to something like 40%. And then what you could do from there is actually have the fill come on its own. So we'll go down to drop our fill down. Let's say we want to create an opacity keyframe. And let's say we'll go to 4 seconds and we'll create another keyframe. And let's go back to the beginning and change that to 0. And now you can actually have the fill come on and fill itself for you. Now you may be asking, what good is this if we can't see the property? And that's a really good question. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to click on our drone shot, and we're going to go to Edit, Copy, and then Edit, Paste. And on our bottom one, make sure it's the bottom one, we're going to delete all of our strokes and fills and everything. And then we're going to go down to Mask, and we're going to delete our masks. And now we'll have our full drone shot back. And as you can see, since the bottom layer is the drone shot without any effects turned on, and the top layer is the mask with all the effects turned on, and I have them layered on top of each other, we now have this, and it looks really, really good. And this is our fill. And as you can see, there's a slight gap here. I could pull Mocha back up and fix that gap. It'd be really easy. You just pull Mocha up, and all you have to do is figure out where that gap is. It looks like that gap's pretty prevalent right here, so you could zoom in and fix that little gap by clicking on layer 1 and making sure you have your pick tool selected, and you could move that over, and then we could track backwards this time, and that would actually close our gap. So let's do that real quick so we can fix that and make sure it's perfect. Okay, so now that the tracking's done, let's zoom out a little bit and we'll scrub through, and it looks like that gap we had is now gone. So all I have to do is go to File, Save Project, Exit Out, and that gap should be gone. All we have to do is just recreate that mask. And so to do that, all we're going to do is go back up to this Mocha effect, and we're going to go to Matte, Create Mask, and now we have a new mask that's created, and as you can see, that gap is now gone, and we no longer have that gap, and it looks much more professional. Now, all we have to do to go back to Align, which is the original intent of this video, is we'll go down to Effects, turn off Fill, and go back to our lines so we can have our lines back. And now our lines should look better too. So if we play through this shot, we should have a really well-tracked shot with no gaps or anything like that, and everything should look really good. It's going to draw itself. Looks really, really professional. And then that's it. This is how you track in Mocha and use the tracking data to create lines or fill for real estate. And again, you can use that tracking data and apply it to call out titles or lower thirds or things like that. But for this purposes, I just wanted to show you how to use Mocha to at least start drawing lines and creating fills. And once you learn how to do that, you can learn how to apply that tracking data to other things. And you can, if you create real estate videos, you can obviously see how this would be very beneficial and really set you apart from the competition. And I'll quickly show you how to export this. For those of you who are newer to After Effects, we're just going to go to File, Export, Add to Render Queue. Down here, I like to change lossless to RGB plus alpha. That's not going to affect this video file, but it's a good habit to get into, because if I was creating something like a lower third or a call out title and I was going to want to apply that to Premiere, if you do not change it to RGB plus alpha and you leave it at RGB, you will find that sometimes the background of the call out title will conflict with Premiere Pro's shots that you're working with. So if you do RGB plus alpha, you'll get a true good looking file that won't interfere with the background on Premiere. And again, that's not going to affect this shot because this is not like a transparent call out title or anything like that, but it's a good habit to always change to RGB plus alpha so you never forget, no matter what file type you're working on. And we're going to change our output to, we'll just save it to desktop and hit render, and it's just going to export our shot for us. And now all we have to do is take our shot and drop it into Premiere, and we're good to go. So that's pretty much it. Mocha is a very powerful program. It tracks a lot better than After Effects most of the time because it was designed from the ground up to be a tracking based software, whereas After Effects does a lot of things really well. It's not exactly a tracking only program the way Mocha is. So if you want to use Mocha for things like rotoscoping or tracking data for things like this, this is how you do it. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you learned something from it. Please let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, and be sure to follow me on Filming with Josh Facebook group so that you can learn more tips, tricks, and how to make flicks. Thanks guys, and be sure to stick around to watch the end of this video so you can see this drone shot in a real world real estate application. Thanks and take care.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Mitchell Klassen with the Klassen Realty Group, and I'd like to present my latest commercial listing in Lockhart, Texas. These two platted lots total almost 4.5 acres and are primed for development. Lot 3A contains 1.455 acres and features a sidewalk along Highway 183 with a traffic count of over 21,000 vehicles per day, in addition to an electronic monument sign. Lot 5A contains 3.041 acres and has dual access off of both Highway 183 and MLK Industrial Boulevard. These 2 lots are zoned for commercial heavy business, have all utilities to site, and contain the following engineered improvements: a concrete drive with drainage outfall structures, a retention pond, and an ATM with a circle drive. It's also worth mentioning that these properties are located in a qualified opportunity zone, offering tax incentives for new projects. If you're looking for your next pad site, give me a call today. Classen Realty Group, powered by Classic Realty.